All right. Hi, guys. So before I get started into the other thing that I want to talk about, I do want to talk about real quick manage back. I'm still missing submissions from the vast majority of you. I've got some people in. Uh, Darian has got her stuff in. I know that I saw where Antonio had his stuff in. Um, but I'm still missing submissions from the vast majority of you. Um, what I'm going to do is I heard that some people were having trouble trying to trying to get trying to find where their stuff was in here whenever they logged in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make an account this week. I'm going to make myself a student account so that way I can't see if I can record a video of how you would submit your stuff yourself. Also, please talk to each other. Obviously, some of you are figuring this out, while some of you are still struggling. So, if you could maybe communicate with each other and help each other out, that would be very nice for me as well. Also, some of you are doing a good job of uploading your stuff here. If you could do me a favor and upload a copy of your presentation as well by adding a document and then just attaching whatever presentation you use, because I think everyone that I saw had a presentation that they use as well. If you could attach a copy of your presentation, that would also be helpful because they're going to pick a couple of you that they'll want to see examples from, and so that helps me whenever I have to submit examples. So that's going to be your only assignment this week. If you've already finished your managed back uploads and your presentation stuff, then I don't have anything else for you to do for class this week outside of our weekly discussion. And then those of you that are still missing your presentation stuff, please go ahead and get it uploaded there. This week, though, for our lesson, I told you that I would answer some questions about college. So I'm going to pull directly from the questions from our discussion thread, and I'm just going to kind of answer them in order. So, first question: how's the life of a college student, and is it really a scam or a waste of time? So, how's the life of a college student? I think that really depends on what kind of a college student you are. There's a big difference between a college student that lives on campus and somebody that lives at home. There's a big difference between a college student that has gone to college to learn, and then somebody that's gone to college because they just want to party. I think that if you are living on campus and you're there to learn and to figure out who it is that you want to be as a person, and also make some lifelong friends, that college will probably be one of the best things that you ever do. Hold on one second here. I'm going to pull up something. Um, um, so also, if you look at lifetime earnings of college graduates versus non-college graduates, right? So for men, so right? So men, if you've got a high school graduate only, their earnings are here. Hold on, let me make this bigger here. There we go. So if you're a man and you're just a high school graduate, here's your estimated lifetime earnings. It's about 1.54 million. All right, is your lifetime earnings. Some college, meaning I started college but I dropped out and I didn't finish, it's about 1.76 million, and then with a bachelor's degree, it's about 2.43 million, and then with a master's or above, it's about 3 million. Which is, I mean, that's a pretty substantial growth curve. Now, where this gets a little different, I'm going to move myself over here real quick, is look at this women. So women, uh, just a high school graduate, they're going to earn less than a million on average. And again, this is from the Office of Social Security. So this is not like an unreliable source. This is the U.S. government census data. And then women with a bachelor's degree, typically about 1.43 million. and then with a graduate degree about 1.8. Now you may be saying, why are women earning so much less than men? That has a lot to do with Leah's question down here. Do you feel like some majors are a waste of time and or money? And I think that really depends on what you want out of life and out of school. The reason why this is so different for men and women are the kind of jobs that women typically get, and then how those jobs are valued by society. Women are a lot more likely to go into fields like social work or education, and a lot less likely to go into things like business and MBA or STEM fields like computer science or engineering, which is where a lot of the growth in the economy is right now. Everyone knows teachers don't get paid very well. If you're an early childhood educator, you're going to get paid even less. My wife works for the Office of Head Start as a mental health supervisor, and their Head Start teachers only make about $16 an hour, even with a bachelor's degree, to start off with. Now, they can make more as they go along, but $16 an hour to start with a bachelor's degree is awfully low compared to starting salaries in STEM. So starting salaries in STEM fields are about $67,000 an hour, as where non-STEM fields are $52,000 an hour. And then starting salary in, let's say, education. Is only about $36,000 a year in Tennessee. So as you can see, by doing some like quick estimates here, jobs pay very differently based on the demand for them in the economy, right? Now, Aaliyah's question is, does that mean that these are a waste of time and or money? I'm a teacher, so I'm going to say no. Do I make as much as I could if I gone into business like my dad, or if I gone into a STEM field? Probably not. When I was in high school, I knew 3 programming languages. When I was in college, I did tech support for our entire campus, and I probably could have pretty easily gone into a computer science field and made a ton of money. For me, my objective in life is not making money. My objective in life is to do something that I think is meaningful and lasting and is fulfilling for me. So, I'm a teacher. I make decent money. I make enough where I don't have to worry about my lights getting turned off, or I can drive a car that I know is always going to run. If it breaks down, I can get it fixed. But am I ever going to live in a giant house or anything like that? Unless I win these Powerball tickets, probably not, right? So I mean, that's just the nature of life. That being said, it's definitely a consideration whenever career planning. My wife is a lot more driven by material possessions than I am. She likes stuff a lot more than I do. She wants to have money a bit more than I do, and that's fine. So she's actually finishing her master's to become a board certified behavioral analyst this semester, actually. So starting BCBA pay is between $55,000 and $130,000 a year. I think the average is about 80 or so, based on like what she's seen. So that's what she's looking to get into. The national average starting salary is about 60 odd $1,000 a year, and again, most of them are about 80,000 or so. It depends on how many hours you work, because they are typically contracted employees. So depending on how many hours you pick up depends on how much money you make. That was, so she found a path where she found something that she cares passionately about, which is helping young kids with disabilities and behavior problems figure out how to function in society. And she's been doing that for Head Start. And she doesn't make bad money, but she doesn't make what she'll make as a BCBA. So now she's going to go and become a BCBA, so that way she can make more money, because that's what she's motivated by. I'm not. I'm perfectly happy teaching at Antioch because my motivations are different. You have to be honest with yourself and what kind of a life you want to live and what's important to you. And those things may also change over time. That being said, I will caution you that I know lots of people with a lot of money who are very unhappy because they chased money their entire lives, and then whenever they didn't need it anymore, they they didn't have a whole lot else going for them because they spent their entire life making money for other people. So really quick, there was a study. Yeah, so there was a study in 2018 that came out that showed that that the life satisfaction. So basically, anything over. So if you're making under $60,000 a year, money has a huge impact on your overall happiness, right? But then once you start making over $75,000 a year, the more money you make has less of an impact on your overall emotional well-being. And then once you make more than $105,000 a year, the happiness index actually decreases. It's a really interesting. It's a really interesting research that basically says that the best salary for like happiness is about $85,000 to $90,000 a year. So do with that what you will. Basically, what that means though is that just chasing money all the time is not always what's going to lead to you being happy. All right. Can I explain what an MBA degree is? Yeah, so an MBA is a Master's in Business Administration. It's a graduate degree that you get in business after you have a bachelor's degree, and it is for people that want to move up in the business world. So people that want to be high-level executives in a business typically have an MBA, and an MBA is basically considered to be a terminal degree, which means that it's the highest level degree available in the field of business. That's changing a little bit. There are some PhDs in business now. Let's see if it's still considered a terminal degree. Uh, Yeah, so and an MBA is still considered to be a terminal degree for most business students. So, and again, that's for people that are trying to be like C-level executives, like CEO, COO, so forth, and then so on. But it's a degree, so like typically you would get a degree in business or like international relations or whatever that is, and then you would get an MBA after that in an additional, usually about 3 years. Um, let's see. What are some tips about college? And when I say tips, I mean anything ranging from how to take notes, what to avoid, who to contact, opportunities for your college, so on and so forth. So, all right, it's a very general question. So let's kind of take it one by one. Study habits. You got to figure out who you are as a student and learn to avoid your own traps. So, for instance, I am a notorious procrastinator. I need deadlines. I work best when there are deadlines. I work best up against deadlines. I can't tell you the number of papers that I've written the night before they're due where I've banged out 10 to 15 pages and just gotten it done and turned in. That's just the kind of worker that I am. That's the kind of guy that I am. And I know that about myself. So knowing that about myself, that means that I need to set myself up for success. So what I would do is like if I knew that I had a midterm paper coming up on X day, on let's say a Friday, I wouldn't make any plans for that Thursday because I knew that that Thursday I didn't need to work, I didn't need to do anything else except for work on the paper that inevitably I would not have started yet. You've got to figure out the kind of student that like you are. Some of you guys are methodical students where you need to chunk tasks and break them up over time and work on them here and work on them there, so on and then so forth. It's all really about kind of who you are and figuring out what works well for you. Hopefully the IB program has helped you figure some of that out. Maybe not, but hopefully so. Tips for note taking. I'm a big believer that you always need to be taking notes. You should annotate every text that you ever get, but that there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's just what works well for you. For me, the objective of taking the notes is not because I'm going to study them later. It's that it helps me remember and have better comprehension as I'm learning in the moment. Sometimes it can be very, very easy to check out during a PowerPoint presentation, so I like to take notes as I go. I will show you a program that I use here real quick. Give me 1 second to pull it up. So I'm a big fan of this program called OneNote. And OneNote is a digital notebook that lets you take notes. So here's some notes that I took during my doctoral program years ago. All right. And the thing about it is that when I'm taking notes in like OneNote, if I'm doing it digitally, I can drag and drop pictures. I can like you just click anywhere and start typing, and it just makes a note. And then it'll sync these between all of my devices. So if I have OneNote installed on my phone, it'll sync it with my phone. If I've got OneNote on my laptop, it'll sync it between my laptop and my desktop. So no matter where I go, I've got my OneNote package with me. So like I've got notes in here for just about everything. I've got some notes for different courses that I took, as you can see, like, and they're just kind of all over the place, right? But they are the kind of notes that help me remember what I need to remember from the courses, or if I do need to like review, then I've got them right here. I've got notes from my IBCP training and where I was working on like brainstorming stuff. All right. I've got, yeah, so like here are my notes from my statistics course. So I'm a big proponent of like OneNote personally. I think that it works really well. But I think that it also just depends on the kind of person you are. But having some kind of note-taking platform, especially in the digital age, is very, very useful. What to avoid? I'm not a big fan of Greek life. I know that Greek life, especially for minority students, is a very plays a large role in the collegiate experience, and I would never tell anybody to not join a sorority or a fraternity, but I've seen a lot of people join a frat or a sorority and it derail their entire college experience. I've seen a lot of them join them and do very, very well, but I think that if you are going to look into Greek life, you have to be very intentional about which organizations you are joining and make sure that they're not just a lot of fraternities have what are called legacy kids, which their grandparents were in the fraternity and their parents were in the like fraternity, and they all went to the same school. And those kids are usually from wealthy families that can be on the 10-year bachelor's degree plan, and most of you cannot afford to be on that plan. So those kids can party all the time and fail classes, and it doesn't really matter a whole lot because they've got the money to keep paying for it. As where for most of you, you're probably going to either be there on scholarship or are going to be paying, and so you need to make your time as efficient as possible. So I would say avoid Greek life and avoid party culture. That doesn't mean don't go to parties, but there's a difference between going to the occasional party and ingratiating yourself in the party culture. You do not want to be one of those people that's at all the parties. All right, those people are look, guys. 80% of people that start their degrees don't finish. um, if you look at let me double check because that was a couple of years ago. College completion rates. Sorry, 4-year graduation rates for students attending public colleges is 33%. So only 33% of students that start school finish. All right. Private schools, it's a little bit higher at 65%, but that's still just barely over half. That means that if you go to UTK or MTSU and you're in a class with 100 other freshmen, only 33 of them are going to actually finish their degree. Um, that should scare you, and that should make you be very, very careful and very, very intentional about not falling into the traps that eat 60 something percent, almost 70% of the students that go to college. And a big part of that is avoiding party culture and being serious about it. Listen, guys, college is no joke. I'm not trying to scare you, and you shouldn't be scared, but you should definitely not take it lightly. My first semester in college, my GPA was a 1.3. And it wasn't because I wasn't smart enough. It was just because I didn't take it seriously. I kind of floated through high school without having to do a whole lot of work, and I didn't have a lot of discipline. And and I got there, and it just kind of smacked me in the face. And so, if you go in though, and you take it seriously, and you do the work, and you read what you're supposed to read, so that way you can be prepared. I can't tell you the number of kids that go to college and think that they don't have to read what the professors tell them to read, and then they're just going to magically do well on the exams or magically do well on the papers. That's not the case. You got to read what you're supposed to read. You got to do the work that you're supposed to do. It's college. Also, you're paying a tremendous amount of money to learn this stuff, so why wouldn't you want to learn it? Um, so yeah, as far as staying up with what's going on campus, no matter what school you go to, there's going to be an online community that's going to post all of that stuff. I'm a big proponent of living on campus so that way you can be a part of the school's culture. Um, it's really hard to be a part of the school's culture whenever you're not living on campus with the other college students. And there's something special about living in a place where everyone is working on the same thing. There's a kind of liberty there as well. And once you get into your upper class courses and the major specific classes, your class sizes are going to shrink dramatically. So you're going to go from classes of 60 or 100 or whatever to classes of like 20. And you'll get to know those like people because they're going to be your same major, and you'll get to study together, and you'll get to know them and make friends with them. You know, Basically the only friends that I have in my life outside of my wife and like two or three work acquaintances are people that I went to college with that I still talk to. One lives in Hawaii, one lives in New Mexico. I got some living in North Carolina. None of them still live in Nashville besides me, but I still keep in touch. I still work with them. We still do stuff together. We try to find ways to like see each other. You will make lifetime friendships in college if you just engage. Um, so yeah, um, but yeah, things to consider while studying. Again, write on everything, including inside of your books, and read the stuff that they tell you to read. When people say college is hard, is it hard to the point that we can't pass it? How would you rate your college experience? How many hours do students study per week? If you choose to minor in something, does it add more to your class's workload? What are the most popular majors? That's a lot of different questions, so let's take them one by one. Is college hard? It depends on your expectations. I would say that college is not harder than the IB. I would say that if you're doing what you're supposed to do for the IB and college are pretty similar. In fact, a lot of kids that have gone on to college from the IB said that college, their first year or two was actually easier than the IB, and then whenever they got into their junior and senior level, it kind of cranked up a little bit. I think that one of the reasons why I push so hard for the IB program is I think that it is probably the best preparation for going to college out of all of the advanced academics programs offered. Um, is it hard to the point where we can't pass it? No, it's absolutely not. Every single one of you is smart enough and capable enough to pass your like classes. It's just going to be work. It's going to be work. You're going to have to try. Um, you're not going to get through it without trying. Um, how would you rate your college experience? Um, so let's see. I started college as an art major, and I went to art school, and then I decided that art was dead, so I dropped out. That was not a good experience. Then I ended up going to Trevecca, um, and I would say that my college experience was pretty good. I was kind of the black sheep of the Trevecca campus, but so were several of my friends. But that's okay. I found my niche on campus. I found the people that I fit with. I had some great professors. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. Um, I very much enjoyed college. My master's degree was also pretty good. My doctorate, not so much. But none of you really care about that. I enjoyed living on campus. The best decision that I ever made is I became best friends with a resident hall assistant, which are basically students that watch over the dorms, and he became my roommate. And so what that meant was that he had a double room to himself, and I got a single room that was in the same suite as his. And then we just put both the beds in the single room, and then we had a big double room that we just turned into a big living room. And we just hung out and lived in a big living room space that was very nice. And then I really didn't have a curfew because the guy that did curfew checks was my roommate. So that was also very, very useful and very helpful for me. Um, it's all about figuring out how to function and where you fit. But I love college. I learned so much about myself and made some lifelong relationships, and definitely wouldn't be the person that I am without it. Um, how many hours do students study per week? I think that depends on your major. So I didn't have to do as much studying as I did reading. So here, I brought you an example. So this was my book load. Ugh. This was my book load for one course, one semester when I was an English major. All right, and so those were the books that we read for one of my courses uh, in one semester. And you're taking usually about four courses at a time. So figure that I had about four of those stacks at any given time was my reading load. So as an English major, I didn't have to study a lot. I spent a lot of time reading and then writing papers because that's what English majors do. They read a lot, um, they read a whole lot, and then they write a lot. And our classes were really discussion based, where we discussed what we read, and then our professors illuminated the text for us and made connections with other things, and then we learned to apply critical theory to it, and then write about it. So my major was not so study heavy. I did have to study in my gen ed courses. Um, Especially the sciences. The sciences were hard for me. Um, Biology kicked my tail. Um, but I wouldn't say it was an unreasonable amount. The vast majority of my time was spent reading, and that's what studying typically is in college, anyways. Is it's just reading. I've got some other examples, like for instance, this is a theater textbook from whenever my wife was in school, a couple of years ago, and it's a textbook, but it's also got scripts in it that they had to study as well. And I'd say she read a good 80% of it for that course that she was in. And so again, you're doing four of those at any given time. Her psychology class was really interesting because it had these modules in it. So, and these modules were these individual smaller textbooks, and they did all of these throughout the course of her psychology class. But again, it all depends on the kind of major. If you're a sciences major or a psych major, so for instance, a sciences major is going to have to spend a lot of lab hours. They spend a lot of hours in the lab doing experimentation and doing lab reports and writing up data, and then writing up the results of their experimentation. Business majors write a lot of papers, and then I don't know what they do, honestly. Outside of that, I don't know what they do except for write some papers and, I don't know, shake hands and play golf. I have no idea what business majors do. I haven't known a whole lot. History majors is a lot like English majors. It's a lot of reading. Just the difference is we read fiction, they read nonfiction. Philosophy majors, same thing, lots of reading. All of the humanities basically. Music majors spend a lot of time practicing. Um, Math is a lot of study, and then a lot of doing math and a lot of practicing math. Um, and then computer science is a lot of study and a lot of coding. The STEM fields are all of the STEM fields are a lot of study, are just a lot of grinding out hours of study. Same thing with pre med and then the non lab sciences. So non lab sciences like cosmology, astrology, things like that are a ton of study and a ton of memorization. So it all really depends on the major, which is why picking a major that you like is so important, because doing the reading never felt like work to me because I loved it. Right? I typically loved what I was reading. I was really into it and I was interested, and I was always reading all the time anyways, just somebody else was picking out the books now. So all I was doing was taking stuff that I was already doing and just turned it into what I was doing for schoolwork. So yeah, The minor thing. So basically, when you choose a minor, so I had two minors. I had a minor in creative writing and a minor in film studies. So when you choose a minor, all that you're doing is basically instead of taking a bunch of different electives, like taking a drawing elective and a bowling elective and African dispersia music or whatever else, right? You take all of your electives in a certain area, right? So for me, all of my electives were either film studies or creative writing. So I was an English major with a minor in film studies and a minor in creative writing, which means that basically I didn't have any free electives. All of my electives were for my major or my minor, and they were pretty academically rigorous. But that's all that a minor is. It doesn't really add to the workload unless you're substituting some crazy easy elective like hiking out for an actual class. Film critical theory. But again, if it's what you love to do anyways, like I took film classes because I love movies, and so like I never I the work wasn't really work because the work was like, hey, watch this movie and then write a paper about what you thought was interesting in it and how it used mise en scene or dialectical montage. Cool, I can do that because I love watching movies and I don't mind writing a paper, so fine. Um, so yeah, all right. What are the most popular majors? I'd say right now, mostly STEM majors, business, pre med is always a big one. Political science, because people that plan on going into law oftentimes take poli sci um, before they do law. It's kind of like the pre law major in a lot of schools. But STEM fields are what are huge right now. So engineering, anything engineering, computer science, all of those fields are really, really big right now. But I would caution you that those fields are also getting overrun with graduates. So I would really look at job growth rates before you decide to major in one of the STEM fields to make sure that you're not majoring in a job that's already flooded, because some jobs there it's just hard to find work in because the markets are flooded. Because we told everyone, hey, go and get a computer science degree or whatever, and then everyone went out and got a computer science degree, and we were like, ooh, we didn't need that many computer science majors. I think that right now, if you look at growth industries right now, anything that gives direct client medical services, so things like nursing, becoming a doctor, obviously is always good, but good luck. Things like what my wife is doing with becoming a like BCBA, those are all pretty high growth. Um, so it all just kind of depends. The problem is that going into something like medicine or things like that, to be really successful with it and to do really well, you typically need a graduate degree. Um, all right, I already answered Aaliyah's question here. How much free time do you have in college? Um, how much free time do you have in college? So I think that depends on how you manage your time and how you set up your schedule. So I set up my schedule around two things when I was in college. One, I hate waking up early, so I never want to take any morning classes because I'm a night owl. I love staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning, and I cannot stand waking up early. Ironic, because now I teach in high school where I have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning every damn day, but it is what it is. Um, so I never had a class before like 11. And then my second thing that I build around is I always try to keep Tuesdays and Thursdays free. And the reason why I always tried to keep Tuesdays and Thursdays free was that if I could make all my classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? So, sorry, college classes are usually scheduled Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour each, or Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and a half each. All right? I usually tried to get all Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes so that way I would have Tuesdays and Thursdays off every week where I had no classes to go to. And those were usually my study slash work days. I got very lucky in the fact that I had a tech support job on campus that was in the evening time. And I was an on call tech support guy, which means that most days I got paid to carry a cell phone around with me and I didn't have to do a lot of work. Um, Most people are not that fortunate. I highly recommend getting a job like being a waiter or a bartender that has very, very flexible hours and where you can work very few hours but do okay money wise, or getting a job on campus. Both of those are pretty okay. Um, but anyways, sorry. Back to free time. Free time depends on how well you manage your time. Because I typically had either very few classes on Tuesday or Thursday, or no classes on Tuesday and Thursday, I could get a lot of my schoolwork done during the week whenever not much was going on. And then whenever stuff was going on during the weekend, I always had free time. Um, because I scheduled it where I never had any morning classes, I could stay up really late to go do schoolwork whenever nobody was going to bother me and not a lot was going on in life. I had a substantial amount of free time in college, even with all the reading that I had to do and like everything else. I probably went to 4 or 5 concerts a week at local venues and stuff. I spent a lot of time in a coffee shop. I went to some parties. Like I had a fair amount of free time, but I also knew that if I was going to go to a concert for 2 or 3 hours that night and then go to a coffee shop with like some of the band afterwards, that either the work that I needed to do already needed to be done, or I was going to have to make up for it later. So it's really just about time management and figuring yourself out. What I would do is my first semester in school, so that first September to December semester, I would have it in my mind that you're not going to be able to do a whole lot besides talk to some people, get to know your dorm mates, and like study and do school until you figure out how to do school. Then once you figure out how to do school, you can figure out how to do other things and do school. My first year at school, I didn't do much else besides do school and hang out with people on campus. And by on campus, I mean like in the dorms. I spent time in like other people's dorm rooms or like whatever hanging out, but that's because it was always easy then to go back to my room and do whatever it was that I needed to do. But I spent a year before I started doing stuff around town or like anything else because I needed to figure out how to do school. Once I got that figured out and I figured out my own self management and my own study habits, things like that, I was good. Like for instance, when you live on a college campus, you're living with other people. Sometimes up to 4 or 5. I spent a lot of time uh, in our campus apartments, and in the apartments, you have to have 4 other roommates, and that meant that oftentimes it was chaotic. There would be other people over and visiting and stuff. So I would grab whatever book I was supposed to read, and I would go out to my car and I'd sit in my car and I'd smoke way too many cigarettes, and I would read in my car where nobody was going to bother me, and like it could be quiet. Sometimes I didn't have to do that, but I just did what I needed to do to get school done. So yeah, um, is it better to live on campus or off campus? I'm a firm believer that living on campus is better if you can do it. I'm a firm believer in that. Living on campus is almost always cheaper than if you were trying to actually live on your own someplace, and it's a great way to figure out how to be a person. So the thing is none of you have any experience being. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Sorry, that was an unfair statement. Most of you probably do not have a lot of experience being solely responsible for yourself. A lot of you typically have other people in your life that take at least some responsibility for you as well. Um, when you go to college, nobody else is going to be looking after you except for you. That's it. There's not going to be anybody to wake you up in the morning if you oversleep. There's not going to be anybody to make sure that you're getting schoolwork done on time or check your grades or anything else. It's just you. That's it. There's nobody to make sure that you're eating right or that you have food in your refrigerator or whatever else. It's just you. Here's why that's nice though, because it's not really just you. It's just mostly you, because you'll still have like what are called clean room checks, which are usually once a week. Where if you're living in a dorm, the RA of the dorm is going to come through once a week to make sure that your room is not a living pigsty, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but it just needs to not be disastrous, right? Um, you'll probably be on a meal plan where even if you don't have any money or if you haven't grocery shopped, you'll still be able to get food from the cafeteria or other places around campus. Um, it's a good way to kind of have your one foot in the adult world and one foot not quite yet. It's a good way to figure out being a person. Um, And so and then also you again you get to ingratiate yourself in campus life. I can't tell you how many uh, college symphony concerts I ended up going to, or music recitals, or events that I ended up going to just because I walked past and they were happening, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to go and check it out, and I had a student ID, so I could just go. And you don't get that option if you're not living on campus. Um, and those were great, memorable things. I listened to our orchestra play some beautiful pieces out on the quad under the stars on spring evenings. I went to friends' music recitals at 6 o'clock in the evening because it was a 5 minute walk away from a dorm room, and I could go and watch them. Brilliant musicians playing to a crowd of like 25, 30 people. Um, and you you only get into those things if you're on campus to be there for them. So I'm a firm believer that living on campus is the best option. I understand that it's not an option for like everybody, but I'm a firm believer in it. I Both of my daughters will be sent to live off campus. What are some tips on keeping up with work? Again, figure out the kind of person you are. Come up with a schedule. So here's a good tip that I haven't covered yet. So your first day of class and all of your classes, you're going to get a syllabus. Boom, right? And it's going to be pretty thick. It's going to be usually about 15, 20 pages long. But your syllabus will typically have every assignment that's going to get a grade for that class for the semester in it. And the reason why professors are able to do this is that most of them change their courses very, very little, and they get to write 100% of their like courses out. And that syllabus is really a contract in many ways between you and the professor, and it will typically have their like rubrics in it and their grading policy and their late work policy, so on and so forth. Read the syllabus. Read the syllabus and know what's going to be due for that class and what the workload for that class is going to be like. If you get a class and you think it's going to be a crazy hard workload with the other classes that you are already in, you will have time during the first week of classes to add and drop classes. You can always drop a crazy hard class and add another class to make up for it, so that way you can keep financial aid and like all of that. But always read the syllabus. And I used to make a calendar when I got all of my syllabi. So I would get out a calendar, and I would go ahead and put the assignments due on the dates for all of my classes, so that way I had a master calendar already done, because college professors are often real quick to not remind you whenever something is due. So, like, there'll be a paper due on Friday and it'll be class Wednesday, and they might not even mention it. And when class starts Friday, they'll say, put your papers on the front of the table on your way out today. And then they'll just start it in on them class. And if you don't have a paper, then that's it for you. The end. Um, Yikes. So I'm a firm believer in grabbing the like syllabus, making a calendar, and reading the syllabus, making sure that you know what is going to be due for that class and keeping up with it. Um, how to write a good professional email to a professor. Use proper English. Don't use abbreviations. Um, Always assume that the professor is old and talks like an old person. Um, so use proper English. Write in complete sentences. Don't use abbreviations. Always start with dear so and so. Introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Sanit. I'm in your blank class on blank day, blank section, because you're going to be one of however many students they have, sometimes a couple hundred. Um, and so they're not going to know you unless you like introduce yourself. Always finish with sincerely, and always thank them for their time and effort, right? So thank you so much for taking the time to read this note and everything that you do for our class. Even if you don't mean it, always have that sentence in there. How to deal with being homesick and living in the dorm. I don't know how to help you there. I never got homesick. I hate my family, and so I never had to deal with it. I couldn't imagine anything better than being away from the people that I lived with whenever I was a minor. Um, I didn't go home for Christmas. I lived on campus during the summer as well. I worked year round for the university, so that way I didn't have to go home. Um, every year that I was in college, I think I went home for maybe 2 weeks grand total to both of my families. uh, like a week around Christmas time, and then about a week in the summer, and the rest of the time I stayed at school because I was not. No, I don't know how to help you with that, except to say that if you're in the state of Tennessee, you can always drive home. Everywhere in Tennessee is 4 hours away or less from Nashville. Uh, Knoxville, which is where your UTK is, which is as far east as you can go in the state of Tennessee, about 3.5, 4 hours away. Memphis, which is about as far west as you can go, about 4 hours away. And Chattanooga, which is where UTC is like 2.5. Just about everywhere in the state of Tennessee is just a couple hours away, and you can just drive home and visit. Um, but I mean, with FaceTime or Google Hangouts or whatever, I mean, you can see and talk to people all you want, but what will happen for most of you is that when you go to college, you will start to grow apart a little bit, and that's just the natural part of becoming your own person. What's going to happen is you're going to become less your parents' child and more your own person. Not that you're going to completely stop being your own parents' child, but you're just going to be less of it, and more of you. And the longer that you're in school, the more that's going to happen. And that's the way that it's supposed to happen. Um, oh, really quick, somebody said, Kaya said, would online college be harder than in person? I don't think online college is good. I don't think online learning works very well. I mean, you be the barometer of your own learning. Are you learning more now that you're in online school at Antioch than whenever you were in class? If it's a yes for you, which for some of you it might be, excellent. Then maybe online learning is for you because it does suit some people. But if you're learning less, which I think is probably most of you, then you might want to consider what the implications are then for your collegiate life as well. All right. Oh. So yeah. So that's that. I'm going to stop now because I've been going for almost 50 minutes. It's almost an hour. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you didn't watch it all in one sitting. Hopefully you broke it up a little bit. Any other questions you have about college, I'll be happy to answer again at a later date. Maybe I'll do this again 4 to 9 weeks right before graduation. Really quick, Darian asked, do you think that we're going to have a real graduation? I don't know. I know that the last time that I heard, they were hopeful that we were going to get some people in the building, student-wise, before spring break. But Dr. Battle seems pretty set on this 7 point, on this 7 being the barometer to begin segueing students back in. And remember, they're going to do elementary first, and then middle, and then freshmen, and then upperclassmen. So you're going to have several stages of phase in before they get to us as well. But graduation, I don't know. I imagine that they are going to try and do something in person. I certainly hope so. One of the things that I hate most about this whole thing is that last year's cohort didn't get to have a graduation, and I was absolutely gutted and devastated by it. So I sure do hope so. But I don't. I really don't know. So, anyways, that's all I got for you guys. There will be a discussion post this week. Please go fill it out so that way I have something to give you a grade for this week. Also, please make sure to submit your stuff to ManageBack. And also, after you submit your stuff to ManageBack, please make sure to go. Oh, no, that's the wrong thing. Shoot. Please make sure to go here to this assignment for presentation documentation and just you can click submit and then just type in the box and say I did it. All right, so that way I know that I can go and check and see that you did it. All right, because this is how I'm keeping track of the grades. This is because my grade book has to be in Schoology now. It can't be in Infinite Campus. So please make sure to do this so that way I can give you a grade. All right, that's it, guys. Have a good one.